Hello and welcome to another Game Dev Local episode, where we will be delving into the strategies that empower game developers to stand out in the current digital landscape and to also avoid any legal landmines. I'm your podcast host, Miska, the Agile Owl. I've worked in the gaming industry as both a game producer and a programmer at AA, AAA studios, as well as indie studios in both South Africa as well as Europe and America. I've also worked as a corporate attorney in South Africa at a global law firm, and I am currently a video game lawyer in the UK. Today, I am thrilled to introduce you to our guest, Mel Foxstar. She's a seasoned career coach. She specializes in guiding professionals through their transformative career journeys. I linked up with Mel Foxstar on LinkedIn, and she has been helping me with transforming my personal branding, making it more clear for myself as well as Agile Owl. She brings a wealth of expertise from her time working at tech giants like Microsoft and Amazon, where she's honed her skills in corporate training and marketing. In 2022, she channeled her insights and founded her own coaching practice. She's dedicated to helping high achievers transition from surviving to now thriving in their careers. She has assisted clients in crafting authentic personal brands that resonate with their unique strengths and their aspirations in their career and their life. Her approach is particularly impactful for those in the competitive game development industry. As you know, you need to distinguish yourself and your personal brand, especially now. So in this episode, we will be exploring how to leverage LinkedIn effectively to build your own personal brand that not only attracts opportunities for yourself, but also aligns with your professional goals. Whether you are seeking new roles or trying to establish your own gaming studio, Mel's expertise will offer invaluable guidance for you. So let's introduce Mel, and this is going to be a fun time. Okay, awesome. Hey, Mel, thanks for joining us today. It's really awesome to have you on our podcast. So thank you for coming through.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Awesome. I'm glad you joined us because I've got a host of questions to ask about building your personal brand on LinkedIn. The first question I do want to ask you is, I know you've worked with a lot of big tech names like Microsoft and Amazon, and you've now helped people build clarity and momentum in their careers. But what inspired you to build your own coaching business?
You know, they say that the thing that you should go build is the thing that annoys the shit out of you. So once you've solved the problem yourself, you should like go sort of send that off. And I would say that that's probably where I started. So my background before I was in big tech, I worked for a travel agency consortium. Before that, I was in retail. Before that, I was an academic. And so I have reinvented myself multiple times across my career. And when I got to big tech, I just found myself really frustrated that even though I had all this experience with moving around and, you know, changing job families and doing all this cool stuff, I just looked around and I was like, other people don't know how to do this. And I feel like I could do this better. And just like for me as a person, but also for them. And I was like, man, all these people are too damn smart and they hate their jobs. I was like, this is just like the worst possible outcome, right?
Yeah.
So I started with like kind of the self-reflection, figuring it out for me. And then I said, okay, now this is legs. I can help other people do this. So that's kind of where I started my journey. That led me into coaching was with this. I want to have a better career. And I feel like the tools and resources that I know about just don't do that well for people in big tech or people who have kind of this specialty industry experience.
So from your experience on, because I assume that you took how many months or how many years to build your own personal brand? How long did it take for you to build out your business?
So to build out my business or to build out my personal brand?
I guess build out your personal brand.
So so you're like, it's kind of a funny question to answer because your personal brand exists,
Mm.
right? So like you and I know each other.
Yeah.
So in your head, you have an idea of what I'm like,
Yeah.
right? And then I show up, and when I'm consistent with that, you're like, oh yeah, that's totally Mel.
Yeah.
When I'm inconsistent with that, you're like, are you okay? Right?
Right.
But in the digital world, we don't know each other, right? So if I want to show up on LinkedIn and start talking about stuff, or if I want somebody to hire me for a job, be that coaching, be that an actual role, um, I need an opportunity to tell them who I am without them having to get on the phone and talk to me.
Okay.
And so when I first sort of started building my business and I first started talking on LinkedIn, the thing I was building credibility for was coaching, right? So I was building credibility for, hey, I'm now a career coach. Here's how I can help you. And I spent my first 6 months sort of like toe in water, really inconsistent
Mm.
posting, not a lot of personality. And about 6 months in, I was like, this isn't working and it feels gross.
Yeah. I've been at that point as well where I've been posting stuff and I'll be like, oh God, this is
Cringe.
awful. Yeah, it's cringeworthy. And then you see
Yeah.
the retention or like the engagement on the post and you're thinking, okay, I gotta switch it up. Like I gotta be more authentic, especially since LinkedIn is
Yeah.
now being drowned out by so much AI posts.
Yeah, totally. And so if we're not talking from our own voice, if we're not sharing our own experience, the rest of it, it's just like totally noise.
Mm.
So I spent probably, once I got like, okay, I have to post consistently, it took another couple months to work out the kinks. So let's call it a year of consistent posting online before I had a pretty strong brand and I was recognizable. The game changer for me was video.
Mm.
Um, so people got used to what I sound like in a written post, but they still would show up to a call and not quite have like a really solid idea of what I'm like.
Yeah.
But once I started doing video about a year ago, I will tell you, people show up to the call like we're besties. Like they just are like, oh, hey, that's Mel. She kind of curses a lot. She talks very colloquially. Oh, by the way, she lives in London, but she doesn't have a British accent. Like all of that stuff
Yeah.
is like, oh, I've seen her in video. I know what she's like. And so that's really been like a thing for me. So the written stuff, yeah, because I love your content. Your content's fun. But I totally hear you that like we're trying to kind of prove that we have all this credibility in like
Mm.
500 words while it not being a, 5 paragraph essay from when we were 12 and it not sort of being this pontification that's kind of pointless that we see all over LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So it's like figuring out that sweet spot for sharing your experience, also having a personality, also adding value to a conversation just takes a little bit of, you know, practice.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it takes a lot of practice. For me, I usually sit there on my keyboard. I'm just thinking, oh my God, what do I write about? And you just sit there for ages staring at a blank document and you're like, inspiration just come to me. But I mean, it's the current landscape right now. I kind of feel like it's really competitive to actually either get a role or on the other scale, it's also quite competitive to sort of stand out if you're literally just doing or copying what everyone else is doing. You're not really standing out to actually put yourself out there as like a leader in the business.
Yeah.
How crucial, I mean, I know how crucial it is, but for my listener, how crucial would it be for building a personal brand, um, like professionals like game developers, designers, artists, book publishers, and you know, also potentially other gaming lawyers out there, because I know there's more than one of me.
I was like, there is more than one of you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So my audience, when I think about kind of the clients I work with and the people who follow my page and kind of, chat to me in DMs in the comments, they kind of span, um, I like to call us the non-tech misfits. So us people who don't come from technical backgrounds. So marketers, designers, UX people, product people, like, we kind of come at working in big tech from like a variety of kind of previous industries.
Mm.
Then we've got people, so those folks making career moves, but then also we've got people who are just trying to grow and roll, right? They're like maybe open to doing something new or whatever. But across that, across that collection of humans, and then obviously other sort of entrepreneurs like us. But across that audience, I think when we're talking about um, doing what everybody else does versus differentiating yourself. Oh man, my brain just fizzled on the question, and I want to hit pause and just like acknowledge that I stalled, and I'm not taking my own advice because I didn't write it down. Girly, tell me what you asked me so I can
So
answer the
sure,
actual
no
question.
problems. It's how crucial is it to build your own personal brand for professionals in the gaming industry?
Okay, good. I was headed down the wrong path. Right path. We're good.
We're
Okay,
good.
so WTF does this matter? Okay.
It's fine. It happens. It's good.
I figured you'd rather me save myself from rambling. So let's not make it awkward for everyone else and let me get back to the point. Why is this crucial? This is crucial for two things. The first thing is if you're looking for a new role, this is your opportunity to talk about how you work. And so when we think about, oh, I am a game developer, oh, I'm a product manager, oh, I do product marketing, all of these things are sort of like, okay, I get that you have kind of a collection of core skills, but your personal brand is how you work.
Hmm.
It's how you drive impact. It's what makes you different. And if you aren't leaning into that, there's no reason for anybody to talk to you,
Okay.
right? So if we're talking about you are somebody who's really good at cutting through the noise or balancing the creative genius of your artists, but also recognizing the business need, right? So you're sort of really good at cutting through that noise and going, okay, how do we find a happy medium that doesn't crush my creatives but still makes my business folks happy?
Mm.
Like that is a superpower. That is a skill you should be talking about. So when we think about the job search process, right? Very obvious. We have to land how we work.
Yeah.
Like when you pay for me, this is what you get. If we're looking at kind of career transition or just generally existing in the modern corporate or not so corporate environment, we have this opportunity to build credibility and let that be our career insurance, right?
Okay.
Because we're all going to change jobs a million
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, that's a given. No one has a very linear path in life. I mean, if I had to put my career trajectory on a board in front of me, it literally looks like spaghetti, like tangled spaghetti
Mm-hmm.
all over the place.
Absolutely, absolutely. The analogy I like is that it's not a ladder, it's a jungle gym.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yes.
Or a ropes course. I don't know what you guys call it. What are those crazy town things we've got here in London where they're just like these kids can climb all over the place. It's epic. But like
Oh, I can't actually remember. Like for us, we just call it jungle gyms. I don't know what people in the UK call it, to be
no idea.
honest. I mean,
Blind leads in the blind.
pretty much. As South African speaking to an American, we're good. We know how the British talk.
100%, 100%. Between the two of us, we'll be
We'll
fine.
be great.
But that idea of it's career insurance, right? It's your opportunity. Like the thing that's going to get you your next job
Mm.
is your personal brand.
Yeah.
And the sooner we learn that and start to reflect that in the activity we're doing online, be that on LinkedIn, or maybe you write a blog, or maybe you do something else, the more that we're showing up in ways that are consistent with who we are and showcase the impact we deliver, the better. So that is the best thing that you can do is sort of give people a taste of what it's like to have you on their team, right?
Right.
Here's how I solve this problem. Here's how I think through this thing. Here's how I balance, what the, players need versus what the, marketing team needs, right? All of that stuff is super important for making decisions on who to hire.
All right. And how would you say, like, what techniques do you use with your clients to identify uh their, I guess, unique value that they can bring to a company or even to a team to build like their own studio, for example? Like,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's kind of the exercise is the same regardless of what you're going to do with the information,
yeah.
right? We start with what do people come to you for,
Okay.
right? Like if somebody slides by your desk, what are they usually asking you about,
All right.
right? That's like your first piece of input. Formal feedback if you've gotten it. So if there's a review process or if you send kind of feedback surveys or anything like that, like what are people calling out you do better than anybody else? A little bit of comparison with how you're different than the guy on your team who annoys the shit out of you is also helpful here, and what
So,
energizes you.
I mean, it's useful to know like how you're probably less annoying than the guy next to you.
I also realized I cursed. Hopefully you're okay with
I'm
that.
fine. You can curse as much as you want. I'm sure our listeners, like, we all curse when we're trying to program as well. We can not, like, defeat a bug and it's just irritating us, or
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what you do, what adjectives you use for stuff like that. But I guess my point is that like there's a piece of your job you enjoy the
Mm,
most, right? So it's like where are you most energized? What kinds of things do you like working on? But then you can also layer this in with all of the feedback that you get from other people because we tend to ignore the stuff that's easy for us.
yeah.
And then you sort of take this data and then you're like, okay, so now what? So now the question is, how does this make you more like effective or impactful? Right? Because if it doesn't connect to the business impact you drive, whether you're an entrepreneur, a freelancer, God love you, or a corporate employee, right?
Right.
If you can't draw the line between how this thing impacts you and like makes you better at your job than everybody else, it's like useless. So if I tell you I'm good at communication, you're like, yeah, Mel, you're a coach. And you're like, right? You're just kind of like, nobody cares. But if I tell you, oh, I give direct and compassionate feedback to help clients, get to the root of the problem and uncover the insights, now you're like, oh, I get why that matters, right?
Right.
So it's like the impact. So that's kind of how I think about it. I sort of like multiple data sources, and then it's like, okay, so what? We got to get to the so what though if we're really going to land it as a personal brand. That makes
That
sense?
makes sense. Yeah. Um,
Okay.
and then I mean, like, if you okay, so you figured out your value proposition, you know you have to build yourself a personal brand on LinkedIn so you can speak the loudest. How would you optimize your LinkedIn profile to reflect all of that so you can sort of attracting the opportunities that you want that kind of reflect what you want in life?
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There's a couple of things that are very much like nuts and bolts,
Mm,
and it's almost like don't invite people to the party unless you've cleaned your sitting room, right?
right.
So like don't bother posting content if your profile isn't finished. Like
Right. Yeah.
because you're going to drive traffic to like an empty room and you're like, what do I do with this shit? So I think kind of the nuts and bolts for everybody are let's make sure that your profile is clear on what you do, right? So, like having the right job title in your headline, having the right skills on your profile, having the right experience, right? So, like, give yourself a scrub and let's just make sure that the stuff that's on your profile is aligned with where you're going,
Yeah.
right? So, when I left marketing and I became a career coach, guess what got dropped from my
All
profile?
the marketing stuff.
All the marketing stuff,
Right.
right? So it's like, because otherwise I'm going to get recruiter outreach to be a product marketing lead. And I'm like, dude, I don't do that anymore, right? You're never going to find me in search. So it's this kind of stuff where you got to look strategically at your profile and go, okay, what am I trying to get?
Mm,
Like, what do I want? What kind of outreach do I want? And do people have the right, do I have the right skills on there? Do I have the right job titles listed in my headline and in my experience? Am I telling the story for why I am credible in this space? That's like table stakes.
yeah.
For my people who have portfolios, this also includes having a link to your portfolio. But then we've got this opportunity to start talking about how you work. And that goes in your about and your experience. And it also goes in your LinkedIn content and any comments you make or any Discord groups you're in and comments you put there, right?
Yeah.
So this is your opportunity to bring your experience forward and kind of lift the curtain on how you do what you do.
Mm,
What have you learned? What is your experience? What are some best practices? What did you learn the hard way? What advice do you give all the time? All of these things are really rich sources for showcasing your skills in a way that's not, oh, look at me, I'm just amazing, right?
yeah.
Those sort of lame ass braggy posts we all sort of scroll by very
Yeah.
quickly on
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Just like scroll
Yeah.
up. I mean, I feel like sometimes I end up doing a thing where I doom scroll sometimes on LinkedIn. Um,
Yeah.
it's very nasty, yeah, but I kind of almost feel like LinkedIn's turning a little bit into a bit of a social media. But I have noticed
Yeah.
not many people have seemed to nail down the personal branding very well in what content they should be posting. I have some people who just post about just what they did during the week, or like, I mean, there's a lot of pizza posts. Like your images really I don't know what it is about people with on LinkedIn and pizza pasta. Like, I mean, I tasted the theory myself, and I did like a post, and I did something completely bizarre where, I mean, like I said, I was gonna do a post about all the different layers in building your own business, like whether it's a gaming studio or a consultancy. But I was gonna compare
Yeah.
that to pasta, like to lasagna, and how lasagna has all these different layers.
I got you. I got you. I'm following this metaphor.
Yeah, and it was an interesting metaphor. So I tested the theory out, and people were just attracted to just the photo of the lasagna. They're like, "Oh, that looks delicious," and I'm like, "Gee, thanks. What about the content?" So
Yeah. So here's the question. Here's the question. So how well did that post drive followers or engagement or DMs for you?
I mean, that post I think managed to get the engagement that I got from that was like 20 to 25 likes on it.
Okay.
And then I didn't really get many people messaging me for work, to be completely honest, even though it was a complete, like, it was an analysis or an analogy with the lasagna versus building a business. The
100%.
one post that did drive a lot of content for me was
Yeah.
talking about, I mean, this was also almost a bit like clickbait for another developer who really created a really terrible video game about gender-based violence, and I had a rant about it because I was just sick and tired of these video games going out there that were like misogynist. And that
Mm,
post, because of my like the line at the top of the post was like, the gaming industry has a misogyny problem and we need to talk about it. That got like over 200 likes and over like almost 10K views just alone on
mhm.
that post. And I'm like, well, damn. I mean, I know the gaming industry has got a lot of women, so it's mostly probably women looking at the post and
Yeah.
loving it and supporting it. And then it had like maybe like 10% of men looking at the post as well, like liking and supporting it, which was interesting. But that was one of the posts that got a lot of lead gen for me, specifically
Mhm.
in the gaming industry. But it's funny, the pasta did not.
Yeah, I think it's great. It's funny you bring up the misogyny post. That may have been how you popped into my feed. So,
Really?
like,
You see, women for the
'cause
win.
I remember that, and that was really early in my like our chat together. So
Yeah.
either it was shortly after we met, or that may have been the trigger. I can't remember anymore. But what I love about the example you gave, so I'm just gonna like in classic coach styling over here, I'm gonna pull some insights, and you tell me if I've got them right.
Cool.
Um, so just because something is popular doesn't mean it actually drives the outcome you want,
Yeah.
right? So eyeballs does not actually equal something that converts. If you're a job seeker, conversion is a recruiter, a hiring manager, a peer of yours showing up on that post, commenting on it, checking out your profile, maybe reaching out to you and saying hi,
Yeah.
right? So, like, that's conversion in that context. For all of us who work for ourselves, conversion in that context is somebody going, oh, this person has credibility. I'm going to pop up on their calendar. I'm going to send them a note and ask them how they can help me. So the impression stuff is interesting from the perspective of where is it going, who's seeing it,
Mm.
right? Am I getting to most of my same target audience? But when we think about the stuff that actually moves the needle, the stuff that actually moves the needle is the stuff that says, hey, I have credibility. I can help you with this kind of problem. It resonates with our audience, and it means that they show up in our inbox. And so with my job seekers, one of the things that they tell me is that once they've cleaned up their profiles and they start commenting and creating content, they just see this hockey stick of profile views.
Mm.
And the fun part is it's higher quality, right? If they're talking about what they do, if they're talking about what they're good at, it's the right audience. And I can see it with my folks too. Like, I had a video that got, I don't know, 350,000 views on it, which
Wow.
is bananas. I talk about changing jobs, guys, like all the time. Nobody even sees like pictures of my garden. Like, literally, I talk about jobs all the time. But of that 350,000 views or whatever, I think it maybe had kicked one or two people into my sort of DMs. It added probably 150 followers, which was great. And over time, those people have continued to engage. So it was really cool. It was definitely a job related one. It was
Mm.
about promotion and that kind of process. But this idea that I need a lot of views in order to get a lot of traffic and DMs and outreach is not actually true.
Yeah.
We want our stuff to talk to the right kind of people, so the right kind of people show up for us.
Okay. So you mentioned cleaning up your profile as well. Is that like you start unfollowing those who not quite aligning with your trajectory, be it whether you are trying to find a job or literally trying to engage with certain client, like the ideal client? Is that what you mean
Oh
on
yeah.
like cleaning up?
Oh, all of the things. So basically, so I would say it's like kind of a couple different angles. So thanks for double clicking on this. Wow, that was really corporate.
I know.
Sorry, guys. Um, so we'll just synergize. The cleaning up your profile, I mean a couple things. So there's literally the stuff that you control.
Yeah.
So it's what is showing up in your profile, what roles are you targeting, that kind of stuff. So nuts and bolts of your profile. In terms of who you are following and engaging with, absolutely. My trick is I don't cruise my feed very often. I just I just have like a bookmark list of the post pages for all the content creators I want to engage with regularly.
Okay, clever.
And I cruise through that. Um, there's even like widgets in Chrome that you can turn off the feed because it is so noisy. So what I would say is curate your feed to be the people that are going to be relevant for you. So the people that are going to be relevant for you are, high ticket prospects if you are working in this industry. So who are the kinds of people who you want to be on it? You want to comment on their stuff, you want to see their stuff because you want to build a relationship with them. So if you're looking for a job, these are people who are hiring managers, industry influencers, folks that work at companies that you want to go work at, right? These are the folks you want to be engaging in the comments because I'm much more likely to accept an outreach from somebody who I've been chatting with. Okay. And chatting with in this context is commenting or engaging. So that's kind of one vibe. The other thing is pay attention to what you're commenting on. There's a lot of kvetching that's happening on LinkedIn with complaining about the jobs market, whining about recruiters, all this stuff. And guys, there is literally a feed of all of your comments and engagements on your profile.
Yep.
Can I tell you a funny story?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Somebody reached out to me, set up time, and so I cruised their profile to kind of see what they're about. And there was 3 posts in a row, the most recent stuff that they had done, where they were resharing ways of gaming the referral system. So paid referrals or services that will, like, you can just contact some stranger and they'll put in a referral for you or other stuff. And so this person was complaining that they weren't getting any responses from recruiters once they had like replied from stuff. And I was like, oh, I wonder why that is, because everything about your profile is talking about how basically you're trying to jump the line and cheat the system.
Oh.
And so if you've been referred in for a role, all of a sudden you've undermined your own credibility.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about these services that are going to, like, you can pay to play. It's like,
it's kind of like almost like you, like, I mean, for the acting industry and the voice acting industry, what you have to do is you kind of have to sort of skip the queue by buying followers onto your social media platform to make yourself look more attractive for the interview. But nowadays they're kind of looking at less about how many followers you have and more about your engagements. But it's so sleazy. It just feels yuck when you come across things like that.
Totally. And you're like, oh, once again, it's like, well, what image are you projecting? Right? Like just a little bit of an audit and going, if I was a hiring manager, would I want to talk to me?
Yeah. And the things,
if I was a prospect, would I want to talk to me?
And the things that you post as well. I mean, I had an unfortunate run-in with a troll on one of my posts
on
LinkedIn. Yeah, and I was just like, it's gonna happen because the conversation I was having with another host on GDL podcast, Oscar Clark, it was a conversation that kind of led off of that post about that misogynistic video game, and it was literally just talking about how you need to be careful about the games that you build and the content that you put out there. You need to kind of do a bit of an audit, kind of like how you have to audit your LinkedIn profile. You need to audit the video game you're putting out there, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of compliance that goes on behind the scenes that you're not aware of. And that was the whole point of the conversation. Um, and a guy came on my profile and was saying this kind of restricts your creative freedom. And I'm like, did you listen to the podcast at all? Like,
Are we in the same conversation right
yeah,
now?
like I was like, I don't understand, buddy, what you're trying to get at. Like,
Yeah.
and then I had the conversation with him, and he was going on about how you can't restrict people's creative freedom. They get to create whatever they want to create in a video game. And I'm like, the topic I'm talking about here is gender-based violence. Are you saying that you should not restrict that, and you should just make video games about that kind of thing? That's, like, and I was just like, oh, this is a bit gross. And saw his profile, and he was like looking for a role being a professor or a teacher at a college. And I'm like, damn, like, there's no way I want to hire a guy like this to teach a bunch of kids in the video game industry. If, like, this is the kind of stuff he posts. And
Totally.
I'm just thinking
Totally.
that's probably like, hopefully kind of maybe destroyed his, you know, ability to actually get a job teaching kids. Because for me, I would not want to hire someone who, like, just before they actually read or listen to someone's podcast, or even like properly read through someone's content, and they just immediately go on a rant on someone else's post, and it's not a
Mhm.
good rant. That for me is something that's going to damage your own personal branding on social media.
Yeah, totally. Totally. And we see a myriad of examples for this. And I would say that generally the pool in LinkedIn stays fairly clean just because people can literally track you back to your place of employment.
Yeah.
But I see stupid stuff all the time. And by stupid, I mean just like completely you live in a bubble and you're not thinking about the perception
Mm.
here, or just how visible this is. You're not hiding anonymously on some Instagram account. Like literally, it's your name, where you work. And I've seen instances of people like screen capturing conversations and sending them on to HR people who work at other folks' companies,
Mm.
right? Just because it's like, what is going on? So it's a bit like you're not an anonymous person on LinkedIn, which keeps the conversation actually more interesting and more engaging most of the time because people are fairly cognizant of it. But exactly to your point, if you're, you know, if you're thinking about, well, where is it that I'm trying to go, and what's the professional norm in that environment?
Mm.
I would hazard a guess that if you're trying to teach kids, that's not the professional norm in that
You know,
environment.
well, at least I hope not.
I'm gonna put myself out on a limb, right, and just say, shit, I really hope not. But it's been a minute since I was in university. But like that idea, so it's like be in line with the professional standard,
Mm.
right? If you wouldn't start sort of mouthing off to your boss about this thing in the same way, then you might want to consider like, what are you doing online? Because it's going to be perceived with the same kind of lens. This is sort of a like bizarrely professional environment, so let's treat it as such. But I do like that's just crappy that that person did
I
that.
know.
Like,
I mean, it was gonna happen. There's a thing called
yeah,
game, like hashtag gamergating. I'm always
yeah,
like aware of it in the gaming
yeah,
industry as like a female, but it's, yeah, it just, when it happened, it felt a bit cringy. But
yeah,
it hasn't happened since. But I'm always aware, and I always sometimes see. I mean, I think it was about 2 years ago. I was in the job market as well, and it was a time where the gaming industry completely imploded, and a lot of people were getting laid off from bigger tech companies. And I think Microsoft was buying out a lot of gaming studios,
yeah,
and there was a lot of bloats because of COVID. So it was just a vacuum of misery and depression. And all that you'd
yeah.
have on your LinkedIn feed is about, oh, I just lost my job again. This is what I'm looking for. If anyone has any, connections for me, or people I can speak to try to get a job at another studio, let me
Mm-hmm.
know. And then there was also more negative stuff of being like, oh, this situation happened because I don't know, like they rant about how, hashtag eat the rich kind of scenario,
Yeah,
and that rant usually does not really help them at the end of the day to actually get the next job, even though they're really angry at that time of losing the job for whatever reason. It just don't feel like it should have actually been. It's like airing out your dirty laundry, essentially.
Yeah, totally. And it's like, sometimes it's like you stir controversy because it's the right thing to do.
Mm.
And you're not like intentionally stirring controversy, but it's like, let's have the debate, right? Let's have the debate. Let's have the conversation. It's a good thing. And so sometimes it's like you put out a piece of content and people are just like, what? I disagree. And you're like, well, here's the reasons why I think this. And you can have a back and forth, and that stuff's beautiful most of the time, even if you don't agree. I'm not here to make people happy, right? But at the same time, exactly to your point, you're airing your dirty laundry. But like, let's think about this for a second. The people in your network who you want to have help you, right? They're reading your content too. And so if everything is about how things are falling apart, how about that? It's really hard for that person who's in your network to do anything more than commiserate with you.
Yeah.
Right? When what we want is we want them to go, oh, hey, I have an open role, or oh, hey, I've heard about this freelance gig, or oh, hey, I have this thing. Right? And so it's like when we're operating on our back foot and we're not putting out there, hey, here's what I'm looking for, here's how I want to contribute, here's what I bring to the table, right? And asking for help in a way that makes it easy for someone to say yes to us, we're kind of alienating our network.
Yeah.
Right. We're just like, well, you're not like, and I get it. You want, but like, my point is obviously get the moral support, but maybe don't put out a post to thousands of people so that you can get moral support.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think the hashtag I'm desperate banner. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh.
Yeah, you've probably got words to say about that. I mean, I think I actually came across that LinkedIn post of the hashtag I'm desperate from this artist who created it, and I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting, but I don't think I would personally put that as my banner, because there's kind of like there's pros and cons to it. But I feel now that I've seen another post, I think a year down the line, it doesn't seem to have got her the traction that she wanted, because it took her about 8 months to get a job after that post went out, and then the job didn't pan out, and I think then she's now retrenched after about 3 months, and now she's back to being hashtag desperate.
That sucks.
And I kind of feel like maybe that wasn't the right kind of impression or the right kind of story to put out there. You probably have like a lot of, skepticism about kind of the banners that you put on, like the green banner, I think is okay because that alerts people that you're looking for work. But I don't know, the hashtag I'm desperate, I don't know, for me, I was always taught don't come across as too desperate, because then you're not going to get the job.
Well, and this is the same thing, like if you've had a career break of several years, or if you're returning to the workforce, right? There's this skepticism, right? There's a skepticism of people who have been unemployed for a long time that, oh, well, if you were any good at your job, somebody would have hired you by now, right? And obviously that's shifting a bit because there have been so many layoffs in different industries, right? So like, if the break is 6 months to a year, most people aren't really blinking anymore. But there are folks who are returning to work after 2 or 3 or 5 years, or they were a freelancer for a long time. Now they're coming back into kind of a corporate environment. And so there's this piece that when we're thinking about our hireability, if we fall back into a narrative about the system or the industry or all these headwinds are the fault of why we're not employed, we tend to talk about ourselves in ways that aren't particularly empowering, right? We don't tend to sort of like bemoan the system and talk about how awesome we are at the same time.
Yeah. Self-promotion. Right? It's kind of cringe.
Right. So like it's weird. Your brain doesn't actually do that. And so when you read a lot of these posts where they're talking about like even the open to work stuff, right? I think the open to work stuff is great. I think there's a use case for it, but where people tend to get the framing wrong, I would say, wrong is really strong, but here I'm a career coach. I get to have opinion about everything. But like I think this is what you're trying to say is that like you have this opportunity, you have all these eyeballs on you when you make a post like this, and you're bemoaning the system when you could be talking about the impact you deliver, when you could be talking about the breadth of experience you have, when you could be talking about what you're looking for, why you would be a great addition to somebody's team. So it's almost like you're standing on top of a bridge with a bullhorn, whinging about how gross the Thames looks, instead of talking about why you're awesome.
I mean,
right?
For some reason in my head, I don't know, with the blowhorn, I saw someone in a kilt standing there. And I might insult a bunch of Scottish saying that, but like that's in my head. It's just, I don't know, video games.
It's not blowhorn, it's bullhorn.
A bullhorn.
Oh my gosh, bullhorn. That's what we call it in the state. I don't know states. I don't know what you guys call it. But you understood what I meant.
Yeah, totally knew what you meant. It's interesting. In every culture you go to, people have a different saying for everything. Like for us in South Africa, when I'm trying to describe somewhere where it's like upper class or like very posh, I think the British call it posh, and then we in South Africa call it Lani, which is Lani. Everything is very Lani. It's an Afrikaans word for posh.
That's amazing. Bougie?
Bougie is an interesting one, yeah.
It's good. It's good. We've been doing good translation together, so we're fine.
Good.
Yeah, but does that sort of capture that idea of like why I think it's sort of poor form to whinge on LinkedIn about the state of the jobs market?
Yeah, it does explain or does like answer the question and also the idea that I had about how bad it is. But if you had to think of it the other way, how could you effectively network and make LinkedIn work for you without either self-promoting or whinging, essentially?
You're like, so what do we do instead?
Yeah,
now that you're telling me I can't just brag.
Avoid the negative, look at the positive. What do you do?
The devices are kicking off and we have no idea why. So when I think about like, what do we do? Let me look, I wrote some notes for this one. So when I think about like, what do you do to use a channel like LinkedIn or a Discord group if you're in there geeking out with people, right? Like we've got this opportunity to connect with people and add value to a conversation.
Yeah.
Right? So that should be the like thing we're looking to do, which is why this whole conversation around like if you create content or you're adding comments to pieces, you're adding value to a conversation. This is what relationships are built for, right? And so if you can warm people up that way, make them sort of perceive you positively before you show up in their inbox, that's great. But a lot of the networking we're going to do is we're going to reach out cold to people. And I generally suggest to my clients as much as possible, lead with the geek. Lead with the thing that you guys have in common that is potentially nerdy, be it school, be it where you used to work, be it a hobby. They're a musician, you want to go into music. They're a designer, you're a designer. They jumped from this company to this company, you want to do the same thing, right? Like lead with the thing that you have in common to kind of demonstrate that you read their profile.
I mean, that's the most important thing. A lot of people don't do that.
And are paying attention, right? You have something you want to sort of have a conversation about. And so the networking stuff, I think people tend to go, oh, I want to talk to the studio's head, or I want to talk to the VP, or I want to talk to somebody super senior. If you're not at that level, don't start at that level. Start with peers.
Yeah.
Right? Peer-to-peer is a great way to start. Peer to a level above, potential hiring manager, sure. Especially if there's an open role, especially if they're hiring for their team, especially if they just joined a team and they may be rejiggering it and hiring people into it. Reaching out, being like, hey, this is what I do. Here's what I'm great at. Would love to chat with you. Sure. Have that conversation. Add value. Be clear on why you're reaching out. Like those are the things.
Okay.
Like that's, I think, where people sort of end up with a lot of flat responses to their, or no response to their outreach, is because they're just like, kind of lame.
Yeah, it kind of makes sense. I mean, I remember like a couple of years ago, I thought like contact the HR person at a company and they can definitely help you, but then it was like crickets in my inbox.
Mhm.
Nothing ever happened. So
Yeah.
I started engaging with other developers working at a particular studio that I wanted to work at. And through that, I managed to kind of put my foot in the door to get work
Yeah.
there. Um, but I've never actually had any luck contacting either a recruiter or an HR person directly, even though it's kind of like an open role. Um,
Yeah.
but at the moment, I'm kind of feeling like so there's a lot of uncertainty right now in every single job market at the
Hmm.
moment. There's a lot of layoffs that are happening. So personal branding is really important, but what do you tell your clients when they're trying to navigate that uncertainty? Because obviously in career coaching, you probably do a lot of there's a lot of like human connection, a lot of psychology that goes behind it. But I'm sure you've had moments where you've had clients come to you and they're really quite emotional because of their personal circumstances, but they have a lot of uncertainty in life and they just at a point where they just kind of want to feel like giving up. How do you
Hmm.
help those particular clients to navigate that?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think, and a thoughtful one. I think that's really hard to stay focused, stay connected to what you're trying to do if you keep getting setbacks,
Mm,
right? And I've had clients that have applied for hundreds of jobs before they come and talk to me.
yeah.
And so they're just like wits end. They're like, there's nothing I'm doing that's working and I can't figure it out. Help me figure it out. Right. And so we start from there and we're like, okay. And that's where like the first thing we do is we're talking about their personal brand. We're talking about what they bring to the table. Right. So we always start there because it's like, I don't know what story to tell if I don't know what you're
Yeah.
about. Right. But even with that, and even with having a clear value proposition, even having a clear presence on LinkedIn, right, you're going to hit lulls.
Mm,
You're just going to. Um, and so when I talk to my clients about it, we're always looking at like, well, let's step back from what's happening, right? Maybe you had an interview and you did this project and you did all this stuff, and they're like, no. Maybe you haven't gotten a phone screen in 3 weeks. Whatever it is, they're sort of just like really low. The question I always ask is, okay, so across the job search process, right? What actions are you taking? What actions aren't you taking?
mm.
And what'll happen sometimes is folks will get really attached to cold applying. And so they'll be churning out applications like mad.
Yeah, spray and pray.
And then those, yeah, spray and pray. And a good response rate for that approach is 5%.
Mm, that's, I mean, it's better than 0.2%, but I mean, it's still pretty
Sure.
low.
I love you and your like optimism here. I mean, it's better than nothing. Yeah. Yeah, as my family would say, it's better than a hole in one. But like, but in the grand scheme, you're just like, that is such a shit response rate,
Mm,
right? You're like, I got to fill out 100 applications to get 5 responses.
yeah,
Maybe,
maybe if you're lucky.
maybe if you're lucky, God help you. So like, this whole idea is like, okay, well, if you're spending all of your time there, what aren't you doing?
Mm,
What are we doing with networking? What are we doing with creating content? What are we doing with commenting? What are we doing with engaging on Discords or X or Slack channels that are for people like us, right? Have we gone to an in-person networking event? Have we reached out to some old coworkers, right? So thinking about what are the other activities that can generate leads, because that's what jobs are, they're leads, that we're not doing, that you control,
mm.
right? Because so much of the spray and pray approach is you just push all the stuff out into the world and then nothing comes back and you feel it, then it becomes personal, right? It's like my personal failing. Whereas the other activities, if you're getting to engage with people who work in the space and have some good conversations, the rest of it, that can be really
Yeah,
energizing, even for my introverts. So it's like that's where we sort of talk about. We talk about like what are the things you're not doing? And then we also talk about like for folks that have been on the job market for a long time, we also talk about, well, what do you need? Right? Are you familiar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
I think I've heard of that, but I've never actually looked into that.
It's a behavioral economics idea.
Yeah.
And it's pretty intuitive. At the very base, bottom of it's a triangle. And at the very bottom of the triangle is safety and security and shelter.
Yeah, the basic
Okay.
needs.
Basic needs. And then as you sort of go up, you wind up with self actualization all the way at the top. And for my clients who are career pivoters or making bigger jumps, we will have a conversation around, well, where are you in the hierarchy of needs? Right? Are you still in a place in which we can focus on self actualization, finding the ideal? Right? Or are we in a place where we need to make some trade offs because our safety and security, our foundation is getting rocky?
Mm.
And really checking in with, if you're feeling like we're in a sort of desperate times mode and you're like, I just need a paycheck, then the question we would have is, all right, so what do we need in order to satisfy that? Is that I'm hanging a shingle and I'm taking out some contract work? Is that I'm going to put myself on Fiverr? Is that I'm going to put myself on like one of the mentoring sites? I'm thinking about, instead of doing a career pivot, I'm going to take a job short term, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to, my go-to is always, I'm going to sling coffee.
Sling coffee.
Right? Well, like, I'm going to go take an hourly retail job because I need some income,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's being very real with yourself about what is it that you need, and recognizing when it's like, okay, I may need to do a short-term thing in order to get myself back on track for the long term. But typically before we get to that point, we're looking at like, what's our strategy? Are we doing all the things that we can? Right? The two things to me go hand in hand.
Okay. And then I mean, from my own like personal experience coming from pivoting from one industry to, I mean,
Yeah.
I think I've pivoted like a ping pong ball really between like the two, legal and gaming.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of clients that I've spoken to, what they did in the past, as well as other people that I've just spoken to on LinkedIn and connected with,
Yeah.
a lot of them can't even pivot to do a short-term type of job as like working at Costco or
Yeah.
working in any type of retail job. I mean, like for me, I worked as a waitress in a little cafe in Scotland when I first arrived in the UK, and that was just, I don't know, it kind of felt like sheer dumb luck that I managed to find
Yeah.
that because of such a tiny little village and they had like an open space available. But when I tried to do that in a different village or like a town, I didn't have as much luck. And I'm not sure why that is so difficult for people to um, get those type of short term jobs. Most of the time, I either get rejected because one, they say, "Oh, you'll get bored," and I'm like, "Okay, well, that's kind of that's a bit of a given, but I kind of need the job." Um, and the other reason is, I mean, most jobs is either you're too like you have to way too much experience, and I'm like, how do you have way too much experience for a particular job, like especially as a waitress or
Mm-hmm.
retail, or you don't have enough experience, and that's
Mm-hmm.
where you just they comment and say, oh, you don't have enough customer facing experience, which is a bit
Mm-hmm.
bizarre coming from the fact that I'm a lawyer and I work customer focused and yeah,
Yeah.
so like as a project manager, it's customer kind of facing. But those are the
Yeah.
type of like typical things that I hear and typical things that a lot of other people I've spoken to, that's what they hear. And they just can't seem to just land any sort of job just to get the foundation of just a job security, something to
Yeah.
feed themselves, put food on the table for their family. And it's so rough out there. I don't know if you've also come across that sort of difficulty for your clients too.
Of course. Of course. I finished a master's degree and then went and worked in Verizon Wireless for 3 years.
Oh,
Because I was like, okay, I need a job. But what you're touching on is something that I ran into across the
mm,
board, which is, if you're not owning the story of how your experience is relevant, people don't see it.
mm,
And I don't care what kind of job search you're doing. Okay. I don't literally don't care. If you're not telling that narrative, no one is going to see it. So if you rock up at the coffee shop I run, because of course that's my fallback,
yeah.
uh, and you say to me, Mel, I've been working with clients forever. I'm really good with responding to people real time. I love coffee. I'm here for it. Well, why are you going to work with me? Why aren't you getting a PM job? Or why are you going to go do some lawyer shit? And you say to me, market's tough, man. I need a job. I really am committed to being here 3 days a week and giving you my all. Let's do this thing. Okay. right?
Mm.
It's owning that story. And it doesn't guarantee that people are going to say yes. But if we're passive in the process, this is back to our personal brand. If we're passive in the process and we're not owning the story of here's what I can do for you, it's really hard for anybody to see why they should hire us.
Okay.
And so I think that's absolutely like a thing you can own. The other thing that I would say you can totally own is there's a lot of what I would call kind of mechanical Turk type things where it's like improving AI responses or other things like that that you can kind of think about to think more broadly about um, knowledge workers kind of applying their skills in different ways. And even if it is something that isn't like, I can't tell you how many times there's like 3 different AI organizations that they pay to kind of improve responses. These guys are always showing up in my inbox, right? So this isn't meant to be some like internet get rich scheme type bullshit.
Yeah.
It's literally that like, if you're thinking about, well, what are the different things I can do, right? Sure, going and working in like a physical environment absolutely makes sense. Putting yourself on a temp agency rotation may be useful for the kinds of things that you do, but you have to think about the story you're telling. You have to think about how you're going to make that case for why they should take somebody who's an art director and make them a project manager at a construction firm.
Yeah.
Right? If you can't explain to me how those two things are relatable, I don't know what to do with you. You're wasting my time.
Yeah. And your own time as well.
Because totally. So it's like so that's the things that I would poke at. I would poke at like, how clear am I about how my experience is relevant and how hungry I am to do this well? How am I thinking about sort of online gigs or other stuff that I can do that's not directly related to what I'm doing for my day job? And this isn't because we're going to add a line item to our resume to talk about how we slung coffee for 6 months, right? We're not doing that shit, right? But there's no reason why we can't go earn some money while we're doing our job search. If you have time for it, if it makes sense with your life, if your kids don't need to be picked up and dropped off and you're not doing everything else, like you can kind of squeeze this time, I think you can go for it. But we got to make that case. We definitely have to make that case.
And then, I mean, you mentioned AI agents, and that kind of brings up the topic, which a lot of people at the moment are feeding into the whole fear mongering of AI and automation is going to take your job, which for me as a lawyer, I mean, I got replaced by an AI agent, a contract management tool that we were building at a big logistics firm. And we were actually slowly just replacing ourselves, like the ones who are at the junior level, we were at least replacing ourselves, and the seniors were kept on. So for me, I kind of already got the feeling like, oh, you know, AI is going to replace my job, but that's not true. That's just how I felt in that moment. But working with Ian at New Legal and working with other clients who are already using AI tools and automation just to make their life easier. And I mean, I even use AI and automation tools to just make my life easier. There's that fear mongering for others that AI and automation is taking over their job, but there's also another side of the story to it that is it really going to take your job, or is it just going to make your job easier so you can focus on the bigger stuff that needs more like deeper thinking and more of like, you know, your gears turning in your head to actually understand something, and just all the really crappy admin stuff, the really horrible things are going to be replaced. But people are at the stage in their career where they think, what's the point in trying if I'm just going to get replaced anyway? What would you say to those particular people to try get them out of that fear-mongering space?
Well, I love the example that you shared around it taking kind of low value tasks and you can still add value on top of that. Like, I think that's kind of like one of the most salient ideas to hold on to.
Yeah.
What I tell my clients is, if AI is coming for your job, you better know exactly why you're better than AI.
Yeah, I like that.
Like, you better know exactly what that is. And I was having a conversation with one of my clients who's a UX designer.
Yeah.
So AI abound. And so he's working on implementing Canva templates so that his team can move faster. right? So how do we sort of operationalize things so that the team doesn't have to spend so much time churning out social posts that are on template, right? And they can focus on other stuff. And at the same time, it's like this other piece where, like, in his next job, he's going to be the person who's making recommendations about how the team uses AI to move faster, how the team uses AI to, or, and I'm using AI and Canva in the same sentence. And don't get me wrong. What I mean by that is like available tools and
Yeah.
resources that are free or low cost. So AI is a really good example. And then kind of for my design people, Canva's in my brain. But this idea of, if something is going to come for a portion of your job, get ahead of it.
Mm.
Know what the best prompts are, know what the shortcomings are, know how you're still better, know what your value is on top of it. Because the thing that you're going to find is, if you can show up and have the streamlining and the processes and the mechanisms that work really well with the AI tools, you're going to be a godsend for the rest of the team, right? You're there because, like, so many people, because of the fear mongering, aren't upskilling or are only kind of playing with it. They're like planning vacations in
Yeah.
ChatGPT when they should be figuring out how, like, to analyze their personal brand via ChatGPT.
Yeah, that's true. I've seen so many
Yeah.
people doing that at the moment, and I'm thinking, oh, please, as long as you're not putting in your personal information. I mean,
Yeah.
I called my husband almost putting our personal information in, and I was like, whoa, stop, don't do that. That's because the minute you put your personal
Yeah.
information or any data in there, it's like a breach of privacy, unless it's one of the ChatGPT Enterprise or the Plus or the paid
Yeah.
one, which doesn't scrape. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people don't seem to know that, and they've just, yeah, privacy breaches. Just a lawyer being a lawyer, just warning people, please don't do that.
100%. No, it's a good plug. It's a good plug. But it's this idea of, like, I think fundamentally it's like, you get ahead of the
Yeah.
technology, right? Like, just get ahead of the technology, get familiar with it, understand what it does, understand what the shortcomings are. Because the people who are going to, and this is, I don't care where you are in your career journey. I don't care if you're brand new, fresh out of uni. I don't care if you've been doing the same job for 20 years. Like, understand how AI could improve some portion of the role. Because if they use Windows and Microsoft products, they're going to already have access to AI. I never remember what theirs is called. Uh, this kind of stuff, right? So it's like, you're already going to have it built into a lot of these systems. So if you've never used it, it's like you just look like a Luddite.
Yeah.
Um, and we can't have that. We have to stay relevant and timely, and demonstrating that we can flex and learn and adjust.
I mean, it's almost as if you kind of have to look back at history to realize that technology isn't necessarily going to be replacing your job, just make things easier and safer for you. I mean, in my head, a perfect example would probably be the introduction of drones. Because, I mean, like,
Mm.
for me, in my background context, I used to be called the drone lawyer back in South Africa, where I would know a lot about drones just purely because I wrote a dissertation on drones. Because back in the day, I wanted to be in the military as a military law, a military lawyer, like JAG or something cool like that.
What a strange and mysterious journey you
I
have had.
know. And it was awesome. When I was writing my dissertation, I got to be involved in the thick of it with a lot of guys who were building drones for, like, the technology, and it was fascinating what a drone
Yeah.
can do to actually improve people's lives, especially in agriculture and policing and
Yeah.
military. And the one guy who was overseeing my dissertation, he's passed away now, but he was a UN special rapporteur, is basically
Mm.
someone who goes out and does all these research and papers and does full investigations for the UN on specific things. And his was the right to life and the use of robotics on the military
Mm-hmm.
field, and how we are slowly going, like, the media is feeding the fear mongering that we're slowly going towards being like Terminator,
Yeah.
or iRobot, whereas that not necessarily the case. And drones were originally created in the World War One by the Wright brothers, where they were the first ones who actually created drones. And it was fascinating to see how that technology just expanded and grew, and the evolution of it to the point where today, instead of deploying a lot of soldiers out into the military, and you know, a lot of those soldiers have families, wives, children, instead of them losing their lives, there's a drone that is deployed to rather, you know, target a certain like terrorist, or, you know, point or whatever. It kind of, to me, seems like that technology saving, it's a bit of a weird topic, like a weird area, but like, I mean, it's essentially saving lives of soldiers. So instead of putting their lives at risk, it's a very it's a very hot topic to touch on. But that's just an example that from my perspective as a drone lawyer, seeing the technology progress with drones has been interesting, and people aren't terrified of that technology taking over their jobs, but just making their jobs easier. Especially in agriculture in South Africa, there were a lot of people who tend to the trees and the plants and the agriculture and the farms. They were at first anxious about drones coming in to take over their jobs of actually tending to the land, but what it actually did for them is they learned this new technology to make their lives easier, instead of constantly wasting time scoping all of these agriculture, like these plants and crops, to find diseases and things like that. They were actually able to learn a technology that they've never learned before, gain skills that actually will put them ahead of everyone else in farms. That if, for example, they lose their job, they can just pivot into the tech industry because they've learned those really valuable skills. And it also improves their time, like they can focus their time on other things on a farm, rather than, you know, constantly walking up and down trying to see if the trees are okay and like find all these diseases, because this technology finds through you know, the technology finds all of the problems with trees and diseases so that it can target it. So for me, I see technology really progressing to the point of, you know, instead of being afraid of it, grow with it.
Yeah, and I think the example you gave is a really interesting one, because it kind of highlights a couple of things that we're seeing with the implementation of AI, right? Which is that, like, if we think about it, it's like, learn the thing that's going to come for your job, so then you know how to drive the thing, right? But also that it allows you to take on a breadth of different types of roles and stretch your skill set a bit. And so this is one of the things that I think is super interesting, is you now have kind of a variety of skill sets you can bring to the table, because you now can add value to this that speeds you up. It lets you sort of increase your skill set elsewhere. And that is like the best possible version of technological advancement, right? If we perceive it as the enemy and therefore we don't learn it, then we get laid off first.
Yeah, and then we get left behind.
We get left behind. That's what happens, right? But if it's like, okay, well, how can I use that? What do I do with it? What do I start to learn so that I can enhance my value, so that I have more flexibility, more options, right? So I don't always just have to take care of this one kind of tree. I can go do something else. You know, I think that's kind of, is that sort of what you were thinking? Is that like, it's like an expansion of skills as well, even with like the drone space?
I mean, it's important for, we always hear the word continuous learning, and just, we never stop learning, and you continuously have to just, there's a certain phrase, I don't know if it's called continuous learning, but it's, you're always learning no matter what you do. I remember university, they went on about it in school, like pick an industry where you will always be learning skills, always learning, like it never stops, learning never stops. But yeah, essentially, I mean, that touches on another topic really for us to talk about, is future proofing your career and continuous learning and, you know, skill development, and like integrating that into your personal brand. I mean, it could just be more than just AI. I mean, this could be something like a skill. Learning how to build your personal brand could be a skill that you also need to learn and develop, because it's something that I've had to learn, and I've only been starting this journey for about 5 months now. And I'm still learning.
Like,
not all. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, no, like, but I think like you're hitting on a really important thing, right? So I think it's like this idea of people will come to me and they'll be like, well, I want a role that's not going to go away in 5 years. And I'm like, policeman? Like, I work with people in big tech. We don't hire people like you. But like, all jokes aside, right? You're kind of like, there very few careers are future proof, right? What's future proof is you continuing to evolve. What's future proof is you having a personal brand of getting shit done. What's future proof is like your adaptability and your flexibility and how you're growing and improving the relevance of your skill set over time. Like when I was in high school, so like when I was like 16 and 17, they were talking about how like earth shattering, like people losing their minds. This generation of kids is going to have to change careers 4 times in their careers.
Meanwhile.
And meanwhile, and so like, we'll just fast forward without me telling you how old I am. I've already changed careers like 5 or 6 times. So like this whole idea that like the modern economy asks us to be flexible, and some of those career pivots that we've done, you know, just like you're sort of bringing your legal experience back into this other space, right? You know, academia into training into marketing into coaching, they all share stuff. They all bring different things to the table. They are sort of similar skills to the table in different ways. And so when we're talking about changing careers, sometimes it's parallel, right? It's moving from design into UX into creative leadership, right? And that could be a progression, literally, or it could be just kind of like different paths that are all basically parallel. And so that reinvention doesn't have to be huge. You don't have to blow up everything and start again, but it could be, how am I thinking about that parallel path I'm going to move on to next? What does that look like over here? How might I think about, you know, marketing tech, or how might I think about something else that's relevant to what I do, but I have to kind of start to build in that direction. And that, I think, is what, you know, AI is an example of like an emerging technology that's going to impact everybody. Then the AI bots are only going to get better and faster, right? So it's, where do you want to grow and what direction do you want to go? And like, how does the technology help you get there is, I think, a question worth asking.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like it's a topic that I think it's like a hot topic right now for like a lot of people. But also like bringing in continuous development and like continuously learning new skills. But I have noticed a lot of lawyers that I've spoken to and a lot of clients who started their own gaming studios as well, and they're learning all these new skills and valuable skills where if they're graduates, or you know, if they've been in the industry a while and they got laid off, they start their own video game studio. For a while they learn all these new skills to be entrepreneurs, to start their own business, but when shit hits the fan, so to speak, and the studio just doesn't do well, and they think, okay, we need to pivot back and go into a working career in corporate again, I've noticed people have a different mindset. It's kind of weird. It's like you have a mindset of being an employee versus a mindset of an entrepreneur. And I mean, I've spoken to, I think, 2 people as well who've said they just don't want to go back to working full time in a business or like a corporate or corporate job or anything like that, because they enjoy the freedom. They're out of the rat race. I mean, as an entrepreneur, you're not working 9 to 5 anymore. You're working like 24/7. But I mean,
I would like to go work for somebody else so I can work less hours.
I mean, like everyone has like their own kind of reason to go back into the job market. Like some people just don't like being an entrepreneur because they were sold a lie on YouTube saying, I made $1.2 million and I don't work 9 to 5, but they just leave out the fact that they work 25/8. Like, so,
exactly. You're like, totally.
But I mean, it's a shift in the mindset, which I think a lot of people struggle with, to try and work now back into a 9 to 5. Have you ever come across a lot of clients that just struggle with that idea, and how they're able to change their mindset from being like freedom, don't have to work with anyone else, and you know, completely reliant on myself, which for some people it's kind of scary, financially, but now I have to listen to a boss and, work 9 to 5 and set hours. It's more rigid. It's almost like working with a mindset of being fixed mindset versus more of a growth mindset. But how would you class an employee mindset and an entrepreneur mindset? Because it's always like that topic's always fascinated me. It's sometimes hard to figure out where someone fits in, and then how they're
Yeah.
able to pivot between being an entrepreneur and then also an employee.
Yeah, talk about trying to sort of like squash yourself in different
Yeah,
ways. There's a couple things that sort of pop into my brain. So like we'll just start. I think there's the first piece is like what's the difference between an employee or freelancer and an entrepreneur? I think is like the first
yeah,
question. And then I think the second question is this like what happens when we need to roll switch backwards into something where we no longer have all the
mm,
control. So I think like the difference for me between like an employee versus a freelancer, excuse me, versus a entrepreneur, a lot of that has to do with where you sit responsibility. So, as an employee, if we believe that the person who runs our team or is our direct line manager is in charge of all of our decisions, we're going to show up in a like, tell me what to do
mm,
kind of vibe. And we all know people who sort of show up and they're like, oh, I want more autonomy, but I also need to be told what
yeah,
to do, right? Like this conflict. Um, and then there are people who are employees, but they have an owner mindset. Okay. So, like, I don't think that there's a mismatch between having an owner mindset and being an employee. I think that the times in which I had the best time in my career is when I asked for forgiveness, not permission. Um, and I was like, we're going to go do a bunch of A/B testing because these customers don't like our product and I can't figure out why. Okay. And then I go show up with like, here's the plan, right? And my manager going like, okay, sounds cool, right? So it's not that you can't be an owner as an employee, right? You take responsibility for the thing that you own and you deliver the shit out of it. You're just like, I'm
yeah,
here for it. But if you as an employee are sort of thinking about other people being in charge, then when you start your own thing and you go as a freelancer, now you're billing your time, right? So it's the same model of you're paying me to deliver a specific thing for you. So that's going to take me 3 hours. And so that's what I'm going to charge you for, as opposed to here's the outcome I
mm,
deliver, here's what I drive, here's the impact. And then we're selling kind of a program or a system or an outcome, right? I'm going to double your social media impressions by 3x in the next 90 days, or I'm going to give you a whole new narrative for your game in the next 6 weeks, and that's going to change the whole vision for what you guys are
right,
delivering, right? So if we're talking about the outcome as a freelancer, then we're sort of in the entrepreneur space because entrepreneurs or solopreneurs or whatever, we sell outcomes,
yeah,
right? Okay. And if I'm billing you for coaching hours, I'm a freelancer. If I'm telling you about you're going to land a new job and it's going to kick ass and take names, we're talking about an outcome. So the mindsets are different. They're not incompatible, but the mindsets are different. The more ownership you're used to having as an entrepreneur, the more clarity and the more scrappiness or sort of like bias for action, as us Amazonians would call it, you sort of are used to doing your own thing. And so when you sort of go backwards into the corporate environment, I think what people get wrong is they don't think about all the skills they've acquired and how that changes their value proposition and what they bring to the table and what they can do and how they should talk about themselves. They go, oh, well, I used to do X, so now I'm going to go do X at
mm,
corporate. And I get that that sort of may ease the transition, but you're very likely to rejoin a team and be sort of in an old position that you've now
yeah,
outgrown. And so I think it's worth asking the question of, well, how do I communicate the value of the skills I'm bringing to the table? And what does that mean when I go in here? Does that mean I go and work on the agency side or as a contractor or in a different kind of role so that I maintain some autonomy, right? Do I shift the type of work I'm doing or how I'm positioning myself for that work in that interview so that they understand what I'm going to bring to the table,
right.
right? Because it's like the entrepreneur experience totally matters, but you have to tell that story. So sorry, I'm talking for like 5 minutes.
It's okay, perfect.
Tell me.
That's perfect. I mean, that's it. I want to know what like your experience as well, and like how I mean, for you yourself, like you came from working at Amazon and Microsoft,
Mhm.
and I know it's quite intense working at those companies because I think for my husband, he worked at Amazon, so I'm like hearing all of
Mhm.
the background chatter, the noise, and things like that. It's quite an intense to come from that into business coaching and just sort of owning your
Mhm.
own brand versus helping the brand of Amazon. It must have been quite a an interesting learning experience for you yourself as a person. Um,
Mhm.
but how did you enjoy building that personal brand for yourself and building up your own business as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I would say that like yeah, Amazon has a reputation for being particularly intense. There's an adage for Amazonians that's Amazon is where overachievers go to feel bad about
Wow.
themselves.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And I don't know where it came from, but it's like it's in my brain. It's been in my brain for a long
Yeah.
time. Uh, and so it's an intense environment, and like the time that I worked there and like my attitude towards work was very much like, cool, tell me what I'm going to go do and I'm going to go
Yeah.
do it, right? Like, so it was very much like, oh, this is my domain, great, I got it, right? So I've been that person for a long time. You could call it scrappiness, you could call it ownership. And so that idea of go figure it out is like central to the personal brand I had at
Yeah.
Amazon. And people would hire me onto their team and be like, we need a Mel in this role because we can't figure this shit out.
Yeah.
Right. And you're like, cool, here I am, people. Here I am. For
I'm
better
gonna
or
be
worse.
lurking at the back here, just helping you guys with the process.
Exactly. Like, this is shit. Let's fix it. But like that idea, so like that idea and that sort of scrappiness and like let's peel it back and put it back
Mm.
together, like that is very much part of how I run my business now. And that transition, the biggest thing for me was getting comfortable with having an opinion and like standing fully as myself. And I didn't really think about this. Back to this, like, how long did it take you to build a personal brand
Yeah.
online? So much of that was decorporating myself,
Yeah. That's true.
right? And like having self belief in my own authority and like credibility. And like by the time I left Amazon, I had coached hundreds of people. But if you got on a sales call with me the first 6 months I was coaching, I was like nervous about my likelihood of getting you results.
Yeah.
And you're like, that doesn't make any sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It does because you've
Right?
had all this experience as well. I
You're right, but like you discount it, right? And so there's this piece of like standing into your power and what you bring to the table and like really being like, no, this is the impact I drive. And so a big piece of my own transition was kind of fully embodying that. And when I talk to people who are in the middle of transitions into being solopreneurs or career pivots or other stuff like that, there's an identity piece that comes with it. There's a story you tell yourself about who you are, and you got to get that shit
yeah.
right. And so, like, for me, that was like getting that right has been like a multi-year process because you get to like a point and then you're like, oh, but it's not here yet. I need to work on this boundary, push through this thing, keep growing, keep challenging myself. And so it's like it just evolves. So like for you, because I know you're sort of in the middle of this process, like where do you think you are on your curve of embracing your entrepreneur?
Um. So I grew up with a family who are all lawyers, accountants, entrepreneurs. So for
Yeah.
me, it's been so difficult having. I can't even explain what kind of a mindset I really have. It's kind of like it's mixed feelings where I
Mm-hmm.
entered into my first corporate job at a law firm, quite a top global law firm, but I always thought like they could do things differently. Like, can't they change things up, be more creative, like do non-traditional legal things to improve your
Yeah.
client's you know uh, effectiveness of a client's case. So I always brought in all these creative ideas and it was always like crushed. So
Yeah.
working in that first corporate experience, that like gave me a lot of it kind of, I guess it gave me a lot of imposter syndrome in myself, like
Mm-hmm.
confidence issues. Because I mean, every lawyer that I've ever spoken to, they always have some toxic story about the industry to tell me
Yep.
about, like, either they've left the career entirely or they've pivoted or they're just still in the career of being a legal or a lawyer, but they're just hating their life, and
Hmm.
horror stories as well. But I mean, like, I think it was last year or the year before when I was back home, and I actually saw my mentor that I worked with. Um,
Hmm.
she she was in a space like she worked a lot with as a spiritual guru almost, and for her, she was forced into the career of being a lawyer from a very young age because her dad was a lawyer, so she was kind of forced into it. But she just,
Talk about
I know,
conflict.
and she just wanted to be a like kind of almost like a spiritual healer, and that's the kind of stuff
Yeah.
she did. And it was only when she was, I think she got a job in the UK and she came over here and did her conversion. Now she's to become like a dual qualified lawyer. While she was here, she did a course about some sort of medical, spiritual, working with the body, soul, and healing it as if you're like a doctor.
Cool.
I mean, she could probably explain it a lot better than I can.
Like integrated
Yeah,
medicine kind
very.
of vibe.
It's integrated
Yeah.
medicine with healing and energy and chakras and things like that.
Cool.
Very like interesting, but that's completely bizarre for the legal industry. Off the wall, like it's non-traditional. It's quirky. It's creative. It's spiritually beautiful, but
Yeah.
not a lot of lawyers like see
Yeah.
that way. They kind of want to dumb it down. So your individual creativity, your personal brand, and yourself is crushed. So coming out
Hmm.
of that industry, working from that law firm, and then I sort of work in compliance, and um, then also like pivoted into the gaming industry. I always carried that like feeling, that being like my crushed confidence. I always carried it with me,
Yeah.
even though it was actually was interesting. Last year, I had a conversation with another like a business that almost became a client, and this was like in the very beginning of starting my own business, Agile Al. Um, it
Hmm.
was trying to land a client who wanted to start their own drone company, and then I just had to go in and say, give him warning that it's going to cost him millions of brands just to get a drone license in South
Hmm.
Africa. And he came
Yeah.
to me and he's like, "You are the drone lawyer." And I was just like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's what everyone knows you by in South Africa." And I'm like, I didn't even know this. Like, it was biz.
Yeah. Back to you don't actually control your personal brand once it's out there,
Yeah.
right? Like,
So
okay.
I was like, unbeknownst to me, I created this whole personal branding without knowing that I did
Yeah.
that. And I thought, like, I'm the person that people go to ask for legal advice on drones and technology. And that
Hmm.
kind of just, I don't know, there was something that like popped in my brain. Call it like a little mini aneurysm or something from stress, but it just it just it helped
Yeah.
my confidence that actually I am providing something and I should be more confident
Yeah.
about the skills that I can bring. And it was
Yeah.
it's that during that transition period where I was building up my confidence again, and then eventually I landed another job in the UK working in a logistics company, and that was when AI replaced me, and that knocked the confidence
Mhm.
down again, and it made me feel like, oh, like I feel insignificant, or like maybe I wasn't bringing enough to
Mhm.
the table. But my performance was never called into question. It was just a matter of trying to push me out legally. But
Mhm.
they also didn't follow proper protocol. So, and I thought like getting labor lawyers involved is like quite expensive process. So during that whole entire tumultuous period, I was like, should
Yeah.
I just carry on doing what I'm doing? Like, I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know what skills I can provide or what experience. And it was only when I came across a certain developer at an Oxford meetup where he asked me a legal question and I helped him, and he's just like, "Oh crap, this like was a big breakthrough. Why aren't you starting your own business and helping people in the gaming industry, because we can't afford solicitors, like we can't
Yeah.
afford it." And I thought,
Yeah.
okay, cool. Like that sounds like a cool idea on paper, and it's an idea that sounds awesome, but it's just so much that goes into it. So during
Right.
like those 4 months while I was still trying to find work, I was doing a lot of research, and Then I came across Ian, who is my mentor, and he's been helping me build up Agile and like
Yeah.
helping me try to change my mindsets of being more confident within myself. And I gave a talk I think it was a couple of months ago. I gave a talk in Leamington Spa about protecting your IP in your video game studio, growing your studio.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I ever gave a talk in front of a lot of people in person, and it was nerve-wracking, like you cannot believe. I
Well
know, I was
done.
terrified. I was like, I wanted to, I don't know, take Rescue Remedy before then, but it was stressful. And I had
Yeah.
that thought. I was saying in my head, I was like that imposter in your head saying, who do you think you are? You know, what kind of experience can you bring? Why are
Mhm.
you even up there talking to these people? And it was something that, like a demon that you had to fight within your head. And just after,
Yeah.
like, that was the experience that I had going into that talk. And then afterwards I had about 5 clients after that talk come to me, and they're now working with me. And one of them started his own video game studio, and he's like, you are the
Mhm.
reason I started a studio. You're the reason why I'm now following my dreams, because I've always wanted to do this.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking, like, an impact from a talk like that, that's like, it helps you to feel less, I don't know, like lacking confidence within yourself. Like, you can actually provide
Yeah.
value. You just have to kind of figure
Totally.
out your branding story, your own story, and you have to actually own it. So
Yeah.
for me, I've gone on this whole entire journey. I'm still going on this
Mhm.
journey of trying to fight that inner demon of imposter syndrome. I know a lot of people fight it. I think someone told me it's got to do with something like how you've been treated since you were a child. If you had ADHD, which a lot of people have ADHD. I think you and I have like forms of ADHD. um, yeah, totally.
Like,
Um,
like
and I don't think I've ever met anyone who doesn't have some form of ADHD, but it's just some people treat you completely different, and then they create that whole
yeah.
imposter syndrome in your mind. And
Yeah.
one of the strategies I kind of learned, ironically, from the guy who actually kind of laid me off because of AI. Um,
Yeah.
one of
Oh
the
yeah.
interesting
Great.
things that he left me, words of wisdom after laying me off, was you have to look at life. You have to look at life forward. You can't always look at the rearview mirror and look at the bad stuff in the
Yeah.
rearview mirror. But at the same time, as he was using a very negative context as well, and you could always say, like, you can look in the rearview mirror and see where you've come and how far you've come. And that's kind of
Yeah.
more of the idea that I want to, think about, is looking
Yeah.
forward and looking towards the future, but kind of looking back and seeing where you've come and what you've done in life, and who you have actually showed up for and helped them get through their own demons, and
Yeah.
help them progress and things like that. Like, what magic you've added to their lives, what magic you've added to your life, to your loved ones' lives. Like,
Yeah.
that's kind of one of the methods that I use to sort of fight imposter syndrome. I don't know if you have any
Yeah.
words of wisdom better than the
I
windshield
mean,
mirror.
how about this? How about I do what I do best, and I'll just reframe what you said, and then we'll just act like that was like the crystallization. And like, here we go. So like, I think you kind of hit on a bunch of different things that I think are really, really good. So I think there's this piece of like looking
Mm,
backwards to understand how far you've come is a really good reminder for you have been in tough situations and conquered them
yeah,
previously. You'll be fine, right? You have survived every day that you have been awake through since you were born,
right.
right? Like you will keep going. So I think there's definitely something for that. There's another piece of this that's like, I think you hit on where it's like your skills may not be valued where you are. That doesn't mean you are broken. That means you are in the wrong
Yeah,
place, right? So this whole idea, and I've worked with clients who have sort of been like, they really love a very collaborative and brainstormy type of environment. They go and work at Amazon where they're asked to write docs. And so they're constantly like on their back foot, feeling like they're not contributing or totally failing
yeah,
at life. We're like, yeah, you're just in the wrong culture. Get out of there. Let's go work somewhere where that's like where you work best is actually part of how the team
yeah,
works, right? So plant yourself where you're going to grow. is like, I think something you hit on again. And I think this other thing that you're talking about is you bring a ton of experience together that is unique. And your ability to communicate how that adds value is your personal brand, right? So you getting on stage and talking to a bunch of people who are like in the gaming world and talking about the legal concerns and starting your own stuff and the rest of it, and really being able to present that to them in a way that resonates is because you get it, right? You understand what this environment looks like. You understand the problems that they're facing. And so you can talk to them in a way that resonates. That's why you got clients out of that conversation, right? This is why you get job offers after sort of a really poignant talk, right? Like, because people go, oh, you get me. You get the problem. You have solutions. I want to work with you, right? So much of our imposter syndrome is a combination of we're taking on something new. We're not sure that we can do it. We can remind ourselves that we've done it before. And having given one talk, you can give another talk, right? So it's like, no, I survived the last one. I'll be fine. Right? I've done new shit. I'll be fine, right? Like literally reminding yourself, because you have prior experience that applies, even if it's some piece of this is new. So it's a stretch, but you've done something before. You bring value to the conversation. Make sure that you're communicating that value. This is the kind of stuff that can really help you ground. And we're always going to have self-doubt.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who doesn't have self-doubt.
We're only human, right?
Yeah. But, the question of, am I interpreting this fear when it really is excitement? How might I stand up for myself and be encouraging of this new environment I'm in? Okay. How do I sort of get on board with this new experience I'm creating for myself? How do I support myself through it? Probably is reminding myself that, like, I deserve to be here, right? I know more about this than these guys do, even if I'm a year ahead, even if I'm 6 months ahead of where they are, I still know more than they do. And so there's still something in here that they're going to take value from.
Yeah.
And like, I think your examples totally covered that. So I'm just, repackaging it for you.
Well, it's been really, really amazing actually talking to you and learning all about like these things about personal branding and how you can just improve your presence on LinkedIn, because I think it's such an important topic if you're building your own video game studio, or if you're even like trying to pivot into the gaming industry, or even pivot out of the industry if trying to find other work.
Yeah.
If someone wanted to come and work with you, what is the kind of work that you do? Like, what are the steps that you take a person through if they wanted to like come through and like contact you on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if nothing else, you can find me on LinkedIn. Because that would be weird otherwise. When I work with people, thank you for asking this. When I work with people, we go through a process where it's very much like clarity, like, who are you? What do you bring to the table? Because we need to hammer out what that personal brand is up front. And then it's, well, where do you want to go? Right? What's the right next step for you? What kind of work do you like doing? If it's a pivot, if it's just a lateral move, doesn't matter. We still want to sort of figure out what is the right environment for you, and how do we create some like actual criteria for that. And then once we know that, then it's the nuts and bolts of your sort of asset library to support a good job search, right? So networking strategies. When do I use ChatGPT to revise my resume? I hate cold outreach. How do I make that not suck? I need a new resume, blah, blah, blah. So all of that sort of nuts and bolts stuff we cover. So it very much starts with clarity up front, and then getting our story right and telling that across everything. I work with people one-to-one, or I also have a group cohort I do. There's one at the end of June that's starting. I don't know when this is going live. But it's kind of different environments for different kinds of journeys, different types of folks, like one versus another. But fundamentally, we're like, we got to know what makes you rock, and then we got to tell that story and have you feeling like really good about the next step you're going to take in your career. Because I work on career transitions, right? I work on reinventions. I work on pivots. So the people I work with are in a spot and they're like, I just don't know that this is the right thing for me anymore. And so it's figuring out, well, what is the right thing? And then how do we get you confidently moving forward? And that is the coolest job ever. I don't care. But that's kind of the dynamics involved, right? Personal brand first, and then actual take some action, get some shit done, land a new job.
All right, awesome. So if they want to contact you, obviously like LinkedIn, I will also drop the LinkedIn link in the description below, and then also like description for if you wherever you're hearing this, whether you're hearing it on Spotify or you've seen this on YouTube, I'll make sure that you can find the link to Mel's profile on LinkedIn and you can connect with her and get as much information from her, book a meeting with her, get help. Especially
yeah. Well, I talk about this stuff all the time, right? So even if you're in my community, like this is the conversation we're having all the time. So this is not a one-off.
Yeah, and her content is amazing. There's so much, like I'm implementing stuff that I learned from what you talk about on your LinkedIn profile. I'm like constantly like updating my profile, be like, oh, good advice, Mel. Just like quickly change your stuff on LinkedIn.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. Well, thank you so much for that, and thank you for having me.
It's been really awesome. I've enjoyed you on the show, and hopefully I can bring you up again, and then we can have another podcast about another topic, maybe about AI and how you can leverage AI to improve your profile.
Oh my gosh, you want to geek out?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
It'd be like a little tutorial. But no, it's good to see you, and thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, Val.